Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Louise Houghton.
Hello and welcome. Coming up in today's show, traditional fare. The Oktoberfest goes back to its past. Changing skylines. Female architects are building for tomorrow. Fine wines. Meet Germany's Winemaker of the Year 2011. And we begin here in Berlin with what was once a major railway station and is now a museum for ambitious exhibitions. At the moment, the Hamburger Bahnhof has been made into a magical garden with hanging soap-like bubbles in the air. Created by Tomás Saraceno, entering this art installation called Cloud Cities is like stepping into a whole other world.
Suspended balloons made of PVC caught up in a web of ropes. It's an installation by artist and architect Tomás Saraceno. Hanging gardens, plants in plastic bubbles. Tomás Saraceno combines art, architecture and science. The 37-year-old has some 20 pieces currently on display in Berlin. Visitors can enter some of the transparent spheres, moving around on a cushion of air. It's Saraceno's first big solo show in Germany.
It's strange getting inside the structures, very unreal.
You're able to sense different feelings and sensations.
It could be interpreted as a different way of seeing life in the future.
A few days earlier, the installation is still being assembled. The balloons are being hung, some measuring up to 8 meters. They can be entered 6 meters above the ground. Elsewhere in the room, rootless plants float inside nets. The preparations have taken 5 weeks. Tomás Saraceno has been living in Frankfurt for 10 years, but he's been in Berlin for the entire preparation phase. The Argentinian-born artist was surprised when he entered the hall for the first time.
I thought to have a plan which I need certain amount of work, but coming up here, I realized that I need much more works. This has been now at the last minute, and with the great help of the team that we have here, we are trying again to remove and relocate some of the works and add more works, and some they will not working, and also find the height of them. It was a kind of, it's really for me as a new installation somehow.
His works aim to break with traditional ideas of space and gravity and promote new ideas for the interior design of the future. The balloons are made from a special tear-resistant plastic. Visitors should interact with the exhibits, move inside the installation. This experience is important to the artist.
A little bit, the idea behind is like a kind of, a little bit that every time that you move a little bit, as we are doing it now, there is a kind of it's a kind of good to try to keep the camera in position. But it might affect the movement of the others ones. And we could have a walk, why not? Then people can really explain, not by words, but a little bit by acting in it. Come on, let's try to get in. Come on, get up you also. Okay, there we are. Come here, come here. No, maybe he can stay there. But if you come up here...
Tomás Saraceno's works have been exhibited more than 100 times and fetch up to 100,000 euros each. The pinnacle of his career was participating in the Venice Biennale in 2003 and 2009. Udo Kittelmann is the director of Berlin's National Gallery. He knows what distinguishes Tomás Saraceno's art.
What has fascinated me about his work for many years is that he is one of the few artists of his generation who is confident enough to return to the tradition of visionary thinking and realizing utopias.
Tomás Saraceno dreams that real living spaces could one day emerge from his utopian visions. The exhibition here in Berlin runs until January the 15th.
Munich's famous beer festival, the Oktoberfest, celebrated its 200th anniversary last year by creating an area with traditional themes like vintage fairground rides, German folk music and nostalgic market stands. This old-fashioned take on the Oktoberfest proved such a hit that it is now back for 2011, offering a more laid-back festival experience.
Thrills, spills, and chills. Monster is the name of the newest attraction this year. It's a 47-meter plunge into terror. But it's much quieter on the southern side of the festival grounds at the Oide Wiesn. Hans Martin Kalb has been at the Oktoberfest with his family carousel since 1969. This year, he's on the Oide Wiesn for the first time.
The whole atmosphere is different here. We have a different kind of visitor. Take a look over there. It's madness. It's not like that here.
The Kalb family Charoplane was built in 1918. It's one of the oldest rides at the Oktoberfest, debuting in 1919. Most of the parts are still original. The seats are full, which makes Hans Martin Kalb happy. The Charoplane is one of the most popular attractions at the Oide Wiesn, the nostalgic part of the festival grounds. It costs €3 to get in. It's emptier, making it more pleasant for many visitors. Some are checking it out for the first time.
We visit the main festival grounds every year and didn't make it last year, so now we're very happy. It's nice here, very relaxed, very Munich.
It's nostalgic but nice because it's original Bavaria. It's not as overcrowded as outside.
The feeling that it gives you. How should I put it? It's not so hectic. And in a way, it allows you to imagine what the festival was like 100 years ago.
22 fairground rides and 2 tents illustrate how the Oktoberfest has evolved over the decades. The Calypso arrived in the 1950s, twirling round visitors in the early days of rock and roll. There were 95 applications for a spot in the old-time section. 24 were successful. The historical traveling cake shop is here for the first time. 12 years ago, Pascal Raviol from Cologne acquired and restored the antique stand.
To make the nostalgic area authentic, I think there have to be museum pieces, items that have lived and have tradition, that are not made of plastic. Places where generations of people have already bought gingerbread hearts.
Pascal Raviol has come prepared. He has 2 trays of gingerbread hearts with 50 different messages. Beer served in historical clay jugs is only available on the Oide Wiesn for just under €9.
It's lovely, especially the stone, the pottery muss. They're really good for keeping your beer cold.
It's just like sitting in a beer garden in Munich, not like being at Oktoberfest. Somehow it's nicer and cozier.
The main festival ground remains that, and if you want it a bit quieter, then you come here.
Whether outside or in the traditional beer tent, there's always space available here. The enthusiasm among the locals is palpable.
A trend has emerged which harks back to the folk fare of bygone times, a trend towards nostalgia. Not everyone who goes to the festival wants to experience a disco and hullabaloo in the beer tents. I've been fighting for that for years, and here is where it's cozy.
Gabriele Wieshäupel doesn't know if the Oide Wiesn will become an annual fixture. Many in Munich, though, are now demanding both Bavarian coziness and a party mood at one of the biggest and merriest festivals in the world.
I can't believe I haven't made it down there yet. Now, the Pritzker Prize is architecture's top accolade, but out of the 35 winners, only 2 have been female so far. Despite this previous male dominance, women are now becoming increasingly prominent in the industry. We met up with 2 top female architects to see how they are changing the world's skylines.
It looks like it's suspended in midair. The Arche Nebra Museum in Mittelberg in eastern Germany. Clean lines and sharp angles, the trademark of one of the biggest shopping malls in Switzerland, the Schönbühl in Lucerne. The TruTech office building in Seoul, South Korea resembles a huge glass honeycomb. All of these buildings were designed by female architects with international reputations. Regine Leibinger belongs to this small elite. She's visiting a construction site in central Berlin, where a global oil company is setting up its German headquarters. The tower was designed by Leibinger.
I've never regretted studying architecture. I love my job. It brings something new every day. A major project like this one is a serious commitment, not least in terms of time. You need the backing of a big architecture firm, and I imagine that's an obstacle for many women. Architecture is a male-dominated field, and not many women get the chance to build something like this.
Leibinger herself has jumped on the opportunities that came her way. She has a number of major projects to her name, which is essential to establishing a worldwide reputation. Regine Leibinger's family owns the Trumpf Company. She's designed some of its factories, as well as a prize-winning cafeteria, a piece of flagship German design that will feature in the Sao Paulo Architecture Biennale later this year. Regine Leibinger attributes her success in part to having the right attitude.
And of course a certain amount of self-confidence and stepping forward and speaking out even when I'm faced with rows of men. These are the characteristics that have led to my success.
Regine Leibinger's office in Berlin. Almost half of the staff here are women. Many of them are young. Prestige projects demand long hours and lots of overtime. And as Regine Leibinger points out, many women tend to opt out by their mid-30s due to family commitments. She herself shares the workload with her partner in both senses, American architect Frank Barco.
The way we work is the perfect setup. We're a couple both in our private and professional lives. We have 2 children. You need a bit of flexibility to have a family, and we bring this flexibility to the office as well. One of us might come in earlier or later, and in general, we can rely on one another completely.
It's perfect. We're more or less interchangeable. We're able to work all over the world. She can visit a project and I can stay home, or vice versa. It works wonderfully.
Children are welcome to accompany their parents to work at this internationally renowned architecture office in Zurich, Switzerland. Together with her partner, Tristan Kobler, founder Barbara Holzer primarily designs museums and exhibition venues, many of which have won prizes. They also share the workload. The company is a bit like an extended family. Before Barbara Holzer founded her own office in 2004, she worked for renowned American architect Daniel Libeskind. She helped build up the Swiss Libeskind studio and played a leading role in the design of the West Side Shopping and Leisure Center in Bern, worth 500 million euros.
Daniel Libeskind was an important part of my professional development and always supported my career. He was a role model to me. I think he was very innovative in the way he worked, and he pushed the envelope. It's very unusual in the world of architecture to see men giving women so much support and inspiration, especially such well-known male architects.
Barbara Holzer made the most of this support to help raise her own profile, with projects such as the exclusive Cataneo residential and commercial quarter in Zurich. The Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich is home to another of her projects. a covered courtyard housing a tower-like structure that's used for exhibitions. Barbara Holzer also works as an architecture professor in Germany and does what she can to promote female colleagues.
If women are going to climb the career ladder within the world of architecture, then it's important that they have female role models, more than they have at the moment. Women who've done things and will do things and have major projects to their name. That's very important.
Barbara Holzer is confident that 20 years from now, there will be more female architects moving up in the world.
The Pope's visit to his native Germany has generated a lot of interest over the last week, and perhaps you saw that when he stepped onto his home soil again, he was wearing some very stylish ruby red shoes. Whilst it is tradition for the Pope to wear red shoes, Pope Benedict's are particularly noticeable because of their vibrant shade. Luckily for the Pope, they're handmade by a shoemaker in northern Italy, especially for him.
Wherever the Pope goes, his red shoes accompany him every step of the way. The papal footwear is handmade by Adriano Stefanelli, who hails from Novara near Milan. The shoemaker has become something of a local celebrity. There are many reminders of his most illustrious customer in his shop. Adriano Stefanelli sent the first pair to the Vatican as a gift in 2002, when John Paul II was still pontiff. They were so comfortable that they became his shoes of choice. His successor, Pope Benedikt XVI, also orders his shoes from Adriano Stefanelli in size 42.
The colour has changed because John Paul II wore dark red shoes, while Benedict XVI prefers the classic ruby red.
In one of his most cherished moments, Adriano Stefanelli personally delivered a pair of his shoes to the Pope in September 2005.
This is the first pair of shoes that I gave to Benedict XVI at St. Peter's Square. It was a public audience, so everyone was able to watch how the Pope received the shoes and other gifts on a large screen.
To the shoemaker's annoyance, the rumor circulated for many years that the Pope's new red shoes were made by Prada, the luxury label from Milan. In 2008, the Vatican put the story straight. The Pope does not wear Prada, but Stefanelli.
I was very annoyed by the Prada rumor. It's always the same. The little guy is under the fat cat's thumb. Usually the big guy wins, but this time I did.
Adriano Stefanelli's family have been shoemakers for 3 generations. His grandfather Antonio founded the family firm in Novara in the early 20th century. His shop also carries ready-made shoes, but his specialty is handmade footwear, with a price tag starting at €400. Custom designs like the Pope's can take up to a month.
I do it because I enjoy it. The shoes are a gift for the Pope. I'm not interested in making a profit. I try to make the very best shoes I can to call attention to Italian craftsmanship and to show what made in Italy means.
He's also given shoes to other celebrities like Ferrari chairman Luca Cordero di Montezemolo and U.S. President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama, who wrote him a personal letter of thanks. Adriano Stefanelli has remained true to his roots. He still runs his local shoe shop and has many loyal customers.
Stefanelli has always been a big name in Novara. Now that he's making the Pope's shoes, that's enhanced his prestige. He's the best. There's no other shoemaker in Italy who can match his work.
Pope Benedikt also asked for a pair of hiking shoes in the traditional ruby red, which Adriano Stefanelli finished this summer.
They have a rubber sole with a special tread. They're light and anti-slip. and have a thin insole so that the Pope's feet won't hurt when he's in the mountains.
Next in line, extra soft slippers. They're to be a surprise gift for the Pope during his visit to Germany. Adriano Stefanelli's bags are already packed.
To finish the show today, we are heading to the Leitz vineyard in the Rheingau region of southern Germany, as the Gault-Millau Wine Guide has just crowned them German Winemakers of the Year. The family business dates back to 1744, and since Johannes Leitz took over, he successfully marketed the wine to an appreciative international clientele.
Johannes Leitz has a passion for winemaking. And now that it's high time for the harvest, he's closely watching his Riesling vines. Leitz took over the family winemaking business in 1985 and has playfully been fine-tuning the product ever since.
Part of the fun is being able to say, let's try this, or go with that color, or another one. Then to find out who had the better idea. And there's always a lot of luck involved.
Leitz started out with 3 hectares of vineyards. Today he runs 40. He owns 10 sites on the Rüdesheimer Berg in Rheingau, one of Germany's best wine regions. The slopes around the Ehrenfels castle ruins also belong to Leitz. Wine has been made here since the 13th century. The hill has a tough 60-degree slope and faces due south. This terroir is the source of his greatest wines.
The soil is what distinguishes Rüdesheimer Berg wines, whether it's quartzite or slate. In this case, here in Berghoseneck, it's quartzite. And that's what we strive for, to have the wine taste of the earth on which it's grown.
The grapes on the steep slopes are hand-picked. For his constant attention to the quality of his wines, Johannes Leitz was named 2011's Winemaker of the Year by the Gault-Millau Wine Guide to Germany.
I don't know what's next, but I can say that I'm not going to let up. On the contrary, this is a motivation to keep your status. But honestly, when I started out in 1985, I would never have dreamed that it would turn out this well.
This is Johannes Leitz's winery. His grandfather rebuilt the destroyed building after World War II. Leitz produces only Rieslings, whether dry, fruity, or sweet. His international breakthrough came with his 1990 vintage. Ever since, the name Leitz has become synonymous with great wine, and many of its products have won awards. Johannes Leitz has preserved one piece of the chateau's history in this cellar with its 60-year-old wooden casks. This is where the very best wines from the steep slopes are aged. His mother kept the winemaking business going with proceeds from a flower shop. Her husband died early when Johannes was only 14 months old.
I had to take over the business because my mother sacrificed so much for it. But it took about 4 or 5 years before I started loving the work. It was great, meeting truly kind, private customers who sort of introduced me to the wider world of winemaking, of good food and travel. So the actual love was a long time in coming, but perhaps I feel more of it now as a result.
The first grapes of the 2011 vintage are pressed. It's a high point for a man who's learned to love his work.
It's a beautiful sight. This is what we worked for the last 12 months, when the juice flows from the pressing machine. And it's so clear. That's a sign that the juice is top quality. It's a sound I had as my ringtone for some time, because it's the most beautiful melody I know.
The brand new cellar accommodates 400,000 liters, the annual production.
At the start, back in 1985, I actually wanted to stay small. My maximum goal was 7 hectares, but it reached a point where the cellar was always empty, and acquiring new vineyards was relatively simple.
In 1985, no one in Germany wanted his Riesling, so he concentrated on exports, and that paid off. Today, 85% of his product is shipped abroad to the US, Norway, Sweden, and the UK at up to 40 euros a bottle. One day he's inspecting the vineyard, another he's presenting his wines in a big city overseas. That's life for Johannes Leitz, Germany's 2011 Winemaker of the Year.
And that brings us to the end of the Highlights show. Thank you for watching and do join us again soon. Until then, bye-bye and cheers.